Hey, welcome. So, when you hear the word geography, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Dusty old maps? Trying to memorize state capitals for a test? Well, get ready, because we're about to completely flip that on its head.
All right, so let's just dive right in with that exact question. What is geography? Seriously, take a second. What's your gut answer? What did they teach you in high school? Because for most of us, the answers are probably pretty similar.
Yeah, you're probably picturing someone studying maps or maybe memorizing a long list of countries and their capitals. Or, hey, maybe it's about knowing the big landforms, like the Amazon River or the Himalayas. And look, those answers aren't wrong, but they're just scratching the surface of a much bigger and way more interesting picture.
What if I told you that geography isn't really about discovering places that are already out there? What if it's actually the study of how we, as people, actively create the world around us? And what if that entire, massive, world-making project starts at the smallest scale imaginable, right here, with our own bodies? Okay, so that's our first big idea. Before we can even begin to talk about continents or countries or cities, we have to start with the very first space we ever get to know, our own.
Let's get really fundamental for a second. You don't just have a body, like it's a car you drive around. You are your body. Every single thing you experience in the world, every sight, every interaction, every feeling is filtered through your physical self. This, right here, is ground zero for geography.
Now, for a long time in Western thought, there was this huge push to deny this. The philosopher Descartes, you might have heard of him, he famously split the mind from the body. He argued the mind was the superior, rational part. And this idea wasn't just left in a philosophy book. It was mapped directly onto society. You see, the mind got linked with ideas like rationality, masculinity, and whiteness. And the body, that was linked with emotion, nature, irrationality, femininity, and blackness. This became a really powerful way to build social and even spatial hierarchies.
This is where geographers come in and say, hold on a second, with an idea called social constructionism. It sounds academic, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It argues that a lot of the differences we see between people, like gender or race, aren't these fixed biological facts. Instead, they're categories that society creates and reinforces through our culture, our laws, and even the words we use.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that our bodies and the spaces we live in are locked in this constant feedback loop. They literally create each other. A city built with only stairs will shape the experience of certain bodies, just as the needs of different bodies can lead to that same city being redesigned with ramps. As geographers put it, they are mutually constituted. All right, so let's zoom out a bit. We're going to scale up from the individual body to society as a whole. Let's talk about how we go from the body to building the world around us, and the incredible power of just drawing lines. I mean, really think about it. What is a country? Or even the plot of land your house is on? At its most basic, it all starts with the act of drawing a line. These lines we put on maps aren't natural. They're human inventions, and their whole purpose is to say, my control ends here, and yours begins. But here's the thing about lines on a map. They're never as solid as you think. They are constantly being challenged. You've got people digging, smuggling tunnels right under them. You have nations that straight up ignore them, like when Israel went into Argentina to capture Adolf Eichmann. They even go deep underground, leading to wild disputes like Iraq accusing Kuwait of drilling sideways to steal their oil. Borders aren't just lines, they're active zones of conflict. So if a line is just a line, what gives it all this power? Well, the answer is a concept called discourse. It's basically the entire system of conversations, symbols, images, and rules that we all share. A line in the dirt is just a line in the dirt, until a powerful discourse of laws and shared beliefs turns it into an international border that people will die for.
And believe it or not, this is how we build something as huge and powerful as a nation. A nation is what we call an imagined community. I mean, you'll never meet every single one of your fellow citizens, right? But you feel a connection to them through a shared discourse of symbols, a flag, a currency, a national anthem. These things tie millions of strangers together and link them to a specific piece of land. We literally talk nations into existence.
Okay, so we've gone from the body to the border. Now let's zoom out one more time, into the abstract, and explore the maps that exist inside our own heads. We all know what a physical map looks like, right? But the maps we use every single day are the ones inside our heads. Think about how you'd give a friend directions to your house.
You probably wouldn't list off exact GPS coordinates. No, you'd use landmarks. Maybe say, turn left at the big tree. That's your mental map. It's personal, it's internalized, and yeah, it's often a little fuzzy.
So how do geographers try to formally map the real world, which is, messy and complicated, not made of perfect squares and circles? Well, they have this amazing tool called a fractal. A fractal is a shape that's infinitely complex, where the same bumpy, irregular pattern just repeats itself over and over, no matter how far you zoom in. That key idea is called self-similarity.
It sounds super complex, but the secret is it's just one simple rule, repeated again and again. To make this shape, the cock snowflake, you start with a plain old equilateral triangle. Then, on the middle third of each side, you stick on a smaller triangle. Then you just do that again on all the new little lines you just made, and again, and you just keep going forever.
And what you get is, well, it's kind of mind-blowing. You end up with a shape that has a coastline or a perimeter that is infinitely long, but somehow it all fits inside a nice finite area. It's a perfect example of how you can get incredible, beautiful complexity just from repeating a very simple rule. Geographers use this idea to model all sorts of things in the real world that defy simple geometry, like coastlines or river systems, or even the sprawling growth of cities.
Which brings us to our final section, and maybe our most modern question, a question that really challenges everything we've been talking about. So, is cyberspace a place? With the internet and everything, has physical geography become, obsolete?
Back when the internet was first taking off, this was the dream, right? Early cyber enthusiasts claimed we were entering this new age where distance didn't matter anymore. A truly borderless world where your physical location was finally irrelevant.
Yeah, but geographers were quick to point out a pretty major flaw in that thinking. And it brings us full circle right back to where we started. No matter how many hours you spend online, you are still a physical body. You're sitting in a real chair, in a real room, using a real computer that consumes real electricity. And your real-world identity, your age, your gender, your race, doesn't just vanish the second you log on.
And if you need proof, just look at something called the digital divide. It shows that where you live in the physical world completely determines if you can even get into this supposedly placeless digital world. In places like the US or South Korea, over half the population has internet access. But in parts of Africa, Asia, and Latin America, that number drops to less than 1%. Geography isn't dead. It's more important than ever. Place still matters. A lot.
So, when you put it all together, what have we learned? We've seen that geography isn't about studying a world that's just out there waiting to be found. It's something we are all actively making, all the time, at every single scale. We create it with our bodies, we define it with our borders, we imagine it with our minds, and we even build new versions of it with our technologies. And that leads to one final, really crucial thought. Because if we're the ones making all these spaces, then every map we draw, every border we defend, every category we create is a political act. It always includes some people and excludes others. It makes certain things visible and other things invisible. So the real question, the one that geography asks us all to think about, isn't if we're going to draw the lines that shape our world. The question is, who gets to hold the pen?